Hey guys, welcome back to Sleeping Stone Whispers. Tonight, we're diving into a world that smells of rosewater, candlelight, and mystery, the world of medieval hygiene practices. From scented baths and wooden tubs to secret perfumes and tiny silver ear cleaners, this story slowly unwraps how people of the Middle Ages kept themselves clean, and how those habits shaped an entire era of beauty and belief. So grab your blanket, settle in, and let your mind drift back in time. If you love calm storytelling and forgotten history, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another midnight journey through the past. The morning in a medieval village did not arrive all at once. It began as a whisper, a soft wind moving through the cracks of wooden shutters, a cockerel calling from somewhere beyond the fog, the sound of water rippling in the village well. Before words were spoken, before the fires were lit, there was water. Cold, silver, and waiting. The well stood at the center of every life, a stone ring wrapped in moss and thyme, a place where women came before sunrise with earthen jars. They did not speak much. Voices were sacred in the morning. Instead, they listened, to the creak of the rope, the gentle splash as the bucket descended, and the low hum of a new day being born. In those quiet hours, washing was not yet a task. It was an act of devotion. A woman named Ellen, wrapped in a wool shawl, would dip her fingers into the well and press the cold water to her eyelids. For sight, she whispered, not for beauty, but for clarity, for the strength to see the day ahead. Another villager, an old man with rough hands, rinsed his palms and murmured a prayer to Saint Winifred, patron of holy springs. Even the children, half asleep, learned to touch water before they touched bread. Bathing was rare, yes, full baths were for feast days, for healing, or for the wealthy. But washing the face and hands was an everyday ritual, performed with care and quiet dignity. Water carried not just dirt away, it carried worry, fatigue, and the unseen burdens of survival. And the scent, oh, the scent of morning water, was unlike anything we know now. It smelled of wood smoke, clay, and air that had not yet been used. Sometimes, if the women had steeped herbs overnight, the basins would release faint traces of thyme, mint, or lavender, drifting into the cold dawn. Cleanliness was not a performance. It was peace. To wash meant to begin again. In the manor house beyond the fields, the gentry performed their own version of this ritual. Servants poured warm water into basins of polished brass, steam rising like holy mist. There were embroidered towels, carved soap made of animal fat and herbs, and even a comb dipped in oil. But even among the rich, there was quiet. Washing was done near a window, where the first light touched the skin. No matter how divided by birth or fortune, everyone began their day with water, the only true equality they knew. By sunrise, the wells were empty of voices. The buckets hung still. The mist lifted. The village awoke, smelling faintly of smoke, bread, and the last breath of lavender that had clung to a woman's sleeve. And in that fragile silence between night and day, the medieval world felt, for a moment, clean. There was a time when cleanliness was not of the body alone, it was of the soul. The medieval world did not separate scent from spirit, nor washing from prayer. Every fragrance carried meaning, every drop of oil held a whisper of heaven. When a woman in the 13th century opened her small chest of treasures, among the folded linens and bits of ribbon might rest a vial, glass, if she was fortunate, or glazed clay if she was not. Inside, a golden liquid shimmered in the light. Rose oil, jasmine water, civet, myrrh, or ambergris. They were not mere luxuries. They were blessings. In monasteries, monks crafted perfumes from plants grown in cloistered gardens, lavender for purity, sage for wisdom, rosemary for remembrance. The scent was believed to lift prayers higher, to sweeten the air before the altar. When a priest washed his hands before Mass, it was not only to remove soil, but to wash away sin. A good smell was seen as a sign of holiness. A foul one, a whisper of corruption. Perfume, then, was not vanity, it was virtue. A perfumed person was thought to be inwardly clean, their body a vessel worthy of grace. In towns and courts, nobles sought the most exquisite scents, distilled from flowers that traveled across seas, traded for spices and silk. Cinnamon oil from Ceylon, musk from Arabia, rosewater from Damascus. A single drop, rubbed on the wrist or behind the ear, could cost a laborer's entire month's wage. But even among the humble, the desire for fragrance lived. Village women would simmer herbs and petals in water, mint, violet, or elderflower, and rinse their hair with the cooled infusion. They called it sweet water. Men might rub crushed leaves of bay or thyme upon their beards before church. Even the poorest carried sprigs of meadowsweet or lavender in their tunics, both to mask the scent of labor and to ward off illness. Because they believed scent could protect. Bad air, the miasma, was thought to spread sickness. Sweet smells were shields against unseen enemies. And yet, behind all belief and superstition, there was something gentler, quieter. A longing for beauty. For a world that smelled like life, not decay. At twilight, after chores were done, a mother might anoint her child's hair with rosewater, not because she feared disease, but because the scent made the child smile. Because the fragrance turned the rough walls of their cottage into something tender, a home perfumed with care. So, perfume in the medieval world was not about seduction, or even cleanliness in the way we think of it now. It was about remembrance. About carrying a fragment of heaven in a world often heavy with dirt, disease, and darkness. And perhaps that is why, even now, when we catch the scent of lavender or rose, we feel something ancient stir, a memory of hands that once mixed herbs by candlelight, believing that fragrance could purify not just the skin, but the soul. Long before water was measured by plumbing or pipes, it was measured by grace. Every droplet carried meaning, every basin, every spring, every bathhouse whispered of something more than cleanliness. It whispered of renewal. In the medieval world, water was a paradox, both feared and adored. It could heal, but it could drown. It could cleanse, but it could also carry disease. To wash in it was to trust it. To bathe was to surrender. And yet, when they did, when a peasant stepped into a stream at dawn, or when a noblewoman lowered herself into a wooden tub scented with rose petals, they felt something nearly divine. Bathing, in those days, was not done in haste. It was ceremony. Servants would carry buckets of hot water from the fire, pouring them into a large wooden barrel lined with linen. Herbs were added, rosemary to strengthen the body, chamomile to soothe the mind, marjoram to soften the skin. Steam filled the air like a living prayer. The bather entered slowly, letting the heat creep up the body, and often someone would read aloud, a psalm, a poem, or sometimes nothing but silence. The body floated, the heart slowed, and for a while, the burdens of hunger and work and worry washed away. But this peace did not belong only to the rich. Even the poor, who could not afford such luxury, sought water with reverence. They visited holy wells, springs said to have been blessed by saints, their waters glowing with miracles. Pilgrims walked miles to these sacred places, carrying jugs and faith. Some washed their eyes to cure blindness. Others drank the water to heal the heart. They believed that holy water could cleanse both the body and the sins that clung to it. It was more than ritual. It was hope. And when the church bells tolled at dusk, villagers filled their small wooden bowls again, wiping the day's dust from their faces. It was said that those who washed before sleep rested closer to heaven. Because in those quiet, candlelit moments, when water touched skin, and prayers whispered through the dark, there was a sense that the world, despite all its pain, could be washed pure again. And so, in the medieval mind, water was never ordinary. It was sacred. It was story. It was blessing. The world may have changed, we have showers and faucets and soaps with names that promise paradise, but somewhere deep within us, the old reverence remains. Each time we wash our face, or feel the comfort of warm water on weary skin, we repeat an ancient prayer. A prayer whispered long ago beside a village well. Cleanse me, not only of the dust, but of the day. It began with steam. Rising from wooden roofs, curling through narrow medieval streets, drifting like a ghostly perfume above the cobblestones. If you followed the mist, it would lead you not to a church or a tavern, but to a bathhouse, a place where strangers came to be clean, to be human, to forget the world for a while. The public bathhouse was a marvel of the Middle Ages, half sanctuary, half stage. From the outside, it looked humble, low timber walls, windows fogged by breath, the smell of wet wood and herbs seeping into the air. But step inside, and the world changed. Candles glowed in niches carved into stone. Buckets clattered. Water hissed as it met hot iron. And everywhere, there was laughter, low, musical, echoing through steam so thick it blurred faces into halos. Men and women came separately in most towns, though not always. Some bathhouses divided the day, women in the morning, men at night. Others, in larger cities like Paris or Nuremberg, allowed mixed bathing, separated only by gauze curtains or modest linen wraps. It was not scandal. Not yet. It was fellowship. Imagine a merchant, weary from travel, loosening his boots and sighing as the warm water touched his feet. A woman, her hair coiled and scented with rosemary, laughing softly as her friend splashed her arm. Old soldiers soaking their scars in silence. Lovers meeting eyes across the steam, pretending not to. In these bathhouses, class melted away like wax. A noble might sit beside a peasant. A priest might share a bench with a miller. The heat was the same for all. The steam erased the sharp lines of rank and cloth. And the smells, oh, the smells. Not the harsh perfumes of court, but the earthy sweetness of herbs, marjoram, mint, chamomile, and sometimes a rare drop of rosewater for special guests. The scent wrapped itself around everyone, making even the poorest soul feel touched by grace. In the corners, attendants carried trays, bread, ale, honeyed nuts, dried fruits. People bathed, ate, and talked. For a few precious hours, they were neither worker nor lord, they were simply alive. Bathhouses were also where news was traded, whispers of kings, wars, or wandering pilgrims. Deals were struck between merchants half submerged in tubs. Songs were sung. Even poetry was recited, the steam making every sound seem round and gentle. And yet, not all looked kindly upon these places. Some priests warned that too much comfort invited sin. That steam softened not only the body but the soul. That laughter, when too free, could turn to temptation. But the people came anyway. Because in a world of dirt roads, smoke, and hardship, the bathhouse was one of the few places that felt like a small piece of paradise. When the evening bells tolled, the bathers would rise from the water, skin flushed and hearts quiet. They would wrap themselves in linen, step into the cool night air, and smell the world anew, wood smoke, bread, stars. And as they walked home, their bodies warm and clean beneath the chill sky, they carried with them a rare and precious peace. Not just the feeling of being washed, but of being renewed. The bathhouse stood at the edge of the old city, built of pale stone and heavy timber, its roof tiled in red, its door carved with faded symbols of water and sun. From the outside, it seemed still, even humble. But once inside, it was a different world. Steam lived here. It drifted through the hallways, gathered in corners, and curled around the arches like a living creature. The air shimmered with warmth and whisper. Every sound, footsteps, laughter, water dripping from ladles, became softer, rounder, as if time itself slowed down to breathe. The walls were damp and glowed faintly by candlelight. The floor was cool stone scattered with rushes. In the center stood a great wooden tub, wide enough for 10, surrounded by smaller basins filled with herbal waters of green and gold. Each arch framed a different kind of bathing. One for soaking, one for washing, one for rest. In the first chamber, men sat waist-deep in warm water, talking in low voices. Some spoke of trade, the price of wool, the coming fair, the new taxes. Others sat silently, their eyes half closed, heads resting against the wood. Steam blurred every face into something soft, almost sacred. In the second chamber, attendants worked quietly, young apprentices of the bath, wearing simple linen tunics, their hair tied back with string. They carried buckets, towels, and small jars of scented oils. With gentle hands, they poured water over tired shoulders, or rubbed soap made from tallow, ash, and mint along a guest's back. Soap, in those days, was precious, a grainy, handmade thing that smelled faintly of earth and herbs. It did not foam like modern soap, it whispered. And then, there was the arched room of rest, the warmest of all. Here, bathers reclined on benches lined with cloth, sipping sweet wine or spiced milk. The air smelled of bay leaves and candle wax. On the walls, someone had painted faded murals, vines, birds, and scenes of paradise. Under those arches, the world outside did not exist. No mud. No markets. No plague. Only the hum of water, the glow of skin, and the soft rhythm of being human. It was said that in these places, the body remembered what peace felt like. That the heart beat slower, that the mind forgot its burdens. And yet, the bathhouse was not just for pleasure. It was healing. Physicians often sent their patients here, for the warmth eased joints, the steam opened lungs, and the herbs restored the spirit. In some cities, the bathhouses even kept records, names, ailments, and cures, written in careful Latin on parchment stained by steam. One could almost imagine monks and healers standing side by side, discussing the virtue of rosemary or the power of sage. And in the corner, by a small arched window, a musician played softly on a lute. The notes floated through the mist like prayers made of sound. Outside, the night deepened, stars blinked above the roof, and the bathhouse glowed from within, a lantern of warmth in a cold, uncertain world. When at last the candles were snuffed out and the guests departed, steam still lingered, clinging to the arches, to the stone, to the memory of voices that had filled the air. And for a few moments longer, the silence of the room felt alive, breathing, waiting for morning. Night in the medieval city came gently, not with noise, but with quiet surrender. Shutters closed, torches dimmed, and the scent of wood smoke drifted like a lullaby through the narrow streets. Yet from one small window near the square, a faint golden glow remained, the bathhouse, still alive, whispering warmth into the cool dark. Inside, the day's clamor had gone. The merchants, the workers, the laughter, all faded. Now there were only a few left, the attendants tidying the basins, the soft hiss of coals being doused, and the scent, that tender, lingering perfume of rosewater and wet linen. A woman named Marjorie stood alone beside the largest tub. Steam swirled around her, gentle as breath. She dipped a brass cup into the water and poured it over her shoulder, eyes closed, as if the warmth could erase the weight of the day. On a nearby stool sat a small jar, the last of her rose oil, brought years ago from France. She opened it carefully, as though waking a memory. The scent rose, soft, clean, and old as love. For Marjorie, it was not luxury. It was comfort. The rose reminded her of her mother's garden, of a wedding morning long past, of laughter that time had carried away. In that scent, she found herself again. Elsewhere in the bathhouse, a young couple lingered by candlelight. They spoke little. Words were unnecessary when the world around them glowed gold and quiet. They washed each other's hands, not with desire, but with reverence, as if the simple act of touch could be holy. In those days, love was rarely private. Houses were crowded, walls thin, and life unkind. But here, in the bathhouse after hours, there was a rare gift, silence, warmth, and a little water to call their own. Some believed that to bathe together was sinful. Others believed it was sacred, a way to wash away the loneliness that clung to human skin. And perhaps both were true. The attendants, moving softly through the steam, carried trays of rosewater basins and linen towels warmed by the hearth. Each towel smelled faintly of clean cotton and wax, the fragrance so simple, so pure, it made people close their eyes. Every candle flickered like a heartbeat. Every ripple on the water seemed to whisper a story, of lovers, of pilgrims, of lost souls who had come seeking more than cleanliness. They had come for peace, for gentleness, for a reminder that beneath the grime of life, something soft still lived within them. And when at last the final candles burned low, and the water cooled to silver, Marjorie drew her shawl around her shoulders and looked once more into the tub. The reflection she saw there, warm, tired, but calm, was not the face of a servant or a widow or a woman forgotten by time. It was simply a soul, washed clean of the day. She whispered a small prayer. May I leave behind the dust, but keep the scent of kindness. Then she blew out the candle. The light faded. The steam thinned into darkness. And the bathhouse slept, its heart still warm beneath the stars. Before mirrors were common, before glass caught the light of human faces, there was the comb. It was not just a tool, it was a ritual, a moment of reflection without reflection. In the soft light of morning, a woman would sit by a window, the air still smelling faintly of bread and ash, and she would draw a comb through her hair, slow, rhythmic, careful. Each stroke untangled not just her hair, but her thoughts. For in the medieval world, hair was more than beauty. It was virtue. It was health. It was a crown of patience. The combs themselves were small works of art, carved from bone, wood, or ivory, their edges fine as lace, their surfaces etched with vines, birds, or crosses. The wealthy owned silver combs, cool to the touch, shining softly like moonlight. They were kept in chests wrapped in linen, beside perfume bottles and prayer beads. One such comb belonged to Lady Avellini, a noblewoman whose castle stood above a river. Every morning, her maid, Breda, would warm a small pot of olive oil and rosemary, dip her fingers into it, and run it through Lady Avellini's hair before the silver comb touched it. The scent of rosemary filled the room, sharp, green, and alive. It was believed to strengthen memory, to protect against evil, and to keep the hair from breaking. Avellini would close her eyes as Breda combed, listening to the soft scraping of teeth through strands. The sound was like the hush of waves on sand, steady, endless, calming. To comb another's hair was an act of trust. It meant closeness, gentleness, care. And in a world so often ruled by coldness and duty, this small intimacy became a language of its own. In the village below, the women had their own rituals. They did not have silver combs, nor scented oil. They used wooden combs, carved by fathers and brothers from oak or ash. Sometimes, they rubbed their hair with a mixture of egg yolk and herbs, or rinsed it in water steeped with nettle or vinegar to make it shine. Children sat in doorways while their mothers combed their tangled curls, picking out straw and dust. There were no mirrors, but there were eyes full of affection. Even monks, in their stone cloisters, combed their hair with quiet discipline, for to keep the body in order was to keep the soul in balance. Cleanliness, they believed, was next to holiness. And so, across class and calling, the comb became a symbol of care. It was used before weddings, before prayers, before death. When someone passed away, their hair was combed one last time, so they might enter the next world in dignity. Lady Avellini's comb, polished and patient, would one day be passed down to her daughter, the silver dulled, but the ritual unchanged. For the medieval world understood something we have forgotten. That the smallest gestures, washing the hands, combing the hair, lighting a candle, were not chores. They were ways to stay human. And in the quiet rhythm of comb against hair, they found peace, a slow, steady reminder that beauty and serenity begin not in mirrors, but in moments. If you wandered into a medieval kitchen on a calm morning, you might find not just bread or broth, but bottles of potion and scent, oils steeped with leaves, flowers, and hope. Because in those days, care for the body began where food was made. The line between medicine and beauty did not yet exist. A woman might crush rosemary for a stew, then stir it again into oil for her hair. A monk could brew lavender for healing a wound, then use the same flowers to perfume his robes. Everything came from the same earth, the same patience. Rosemary was the queen of herbs, sharp, green, and eternal. They believed it strengthened memory, chased away melancholy, and brought life to dull hair. Where rosemary grows, the old saying went, the mistress rules with wisdom. And so, on quiet afternoons, women would gather herbs from garden plots behind their cottages, rosemary, thyme, sage, and bay, hang them upside down to dry, and then boil them slowly in pots of olive oil or goose fat. The scent filled the air, sweet, medicinal, ancient. When cooled, the oil was poured into clay jars, labeled not with ink but with scratches, a cross, a leaf, a small symbol for each family's secret. The mixture was kept near the hearth, to be warmed before use. At night, the ritual began. Avellini, the noblewoman with the silver comb, sat beside the fire while her maid Brita rubbed warm rosemary oil into her scalp. The heat of the flames mixed with the fragrance until the room smelled like memory, green, smoky, alive. Outside, snow fell softly on the castle roofs, but inside, the small room glowed with warmth and the sound of combing, slow, even strokes that seemed to brush away time itself. For the poor, rosemary was not always easy to find. They used thyme or nettle, or boiled rainwater with vinegar to cleanse the scalp. It was said that if one recited a short prayer while applying the oil, God keep the roots and grant the strength of earth, the hair would grow thick and healthy. But whether in a castle or a cottage, this care meant the same thing, the honoring of the self. Not out of vanity, but out of gratitude for the body that worked, suffered, and still endured. Every family had a different recipe. Some added honey for shine, others ashes for cleansing, and the rarest used ambergris, a perfume from the sea, carried by merchants from far-off shores. The fragrances were gentle but lasting, the kind that stayed in linen sheets, in pillow corners, in memory. And time itself seemed to move differently during these rituals. There was no rush, no schedule. Just patience, the steady rhythm of fingers in hair, the scent of herbs, the soft murmur of evening prayers. For in those slow, fragrant moments, people remembered who they were before the noise of work, war, and worry. They were simple souls of earth and breath, grateful for warmth, grateful for scent, grateful for care. And long after the fires dimmed, the fragrance of rosemary still lingered, in the hair, in the air, in the silence. It was more than an herb. It was time itself, preserved in perfume. Morning in the medieval world began with sound before sight, the echo of bells, the whisper of rain on shutters, the creak of wood underfoot. There were no bright glass mirrors to greet the waking face. Only basins of still water, sometimes copper-polished, sometimes muddy and streaked from the night before. The reflection that looked back was never clear, never certain. It shimmered and trembled, a face made of light and ripple, easily lost to a passing breeze. Yet, in that uncertain image, there was a kind of peace. People did not rise to study their own features, they rose to wash, to pray, to begin. A servant brought a small bowl of water, scented faintly with herbs or rose petals if one could afford them. The chill of morning met the skin, and for a moment, the world felt new. Hands, face, neck, a few drops of oil, a soft linen cloth, and then the day began. No one spoke of beauty routines. There was only cleanliness, an act of humility, a way to show respect to God, to the body, to the labor ahead. In those days, the body was not an ornament, but a vessel. A means to pray, to work, to carry burdens. The faces that looked into those trembling waters saw age and sun and scars without fear. A baker's wife might tie her hair with a strip of cloth, smoothing stray curls not for others, but so that flour wouldn't cling to them. A monk might wash his hands in cold water before copying a sacred text, whispering softly, "Clean hands for clean words." And a peasant girl, crouched beside a stream, would rinse her face as the sun rose, her reflection scattered by the current, but her heart bright with purpose. They saw beauty not in the glass, but in gesture. A clean hand. A calm face. A kindness done without witness. There were, of course, small hand mirrors, rare and costly things, framed in silver or brass. But even those showed only a fragment, a blur of what one was. So people learned to see through others' eyes. A compliment from a friend, "You look well this morning." A smile from a stranger at market. A child resting their head on your lap. That was reflection enough. And in those mirrorless mornings, something sacred lingered, a stillness, a simplicity the modern world has long since forgotten. Without the tyranny of the perfect image, people learned to feel beautiful, not look it. Their worth was measured not in symmetry, but in sincerity, not in smoothness of skin, but in strength of heart. When the first light spilled through the shutters, it caught in the basin of water, breaking into golden shards that danced across the room. A face bent over that light, clean, calm, unknown, smiled faintly, and then rose to begin the day. And perhaps that was the truest reflection of all. Not what the eyes could see, but what the soul could feel. In the heart of a medieval town, where cobblestone lanes twisted like threads of memory, there stood a low, domed building that breathed warmth into the winter air. No sign marked its name. No herald called it sacred. Yet, to those who entered, it was both temple and refuge. It was the bathhouse. A place where steam rose like prayer, and water spoke in whispers. Inside, light filtered through narrow slits in the roof, catching on the mist that curled above the pools. The air smelled faintly of lavender, lime blossom, and stone. You could hear everything and nothing, the drip of water, the shuffle of bare feet, the sighs of those who found rest there. Men and women came not in vanity, but in need, for warmth, for comfort, for healing. Farmers whose hands were cracked from winter. Soldiers whose skin still carried the scent of iron. Mothers, exhausted from tending to life, seeking 1 hour of gentleness. Here, the body was forgiven. Attendants moved quietly through the haze, pouring hot water into basins, stirring herbs into steam. Some bathed in silence. Others murmured soft prayers as the warmth wrapped around them. A medieval bathhouse was not just for washing, it was a ritual of renewal. The poor and the rich alike came to wash away more than dirt, to shed guilt, grief, weariness. The warm air made strangers equals. There was no perfume finer than clean water, no luxury greater than warmth shared in winter. In a corner, a priest sometimes sat, eyes closed, whispering psalms while his hands soaked in herbal steam. For in those days, cleanliness was half spiritual, to cleanse the flesh was to remind the soul of its own purity. And so, the bathhouse became a meeting place of contrasts, sacred and simple, bodily and divine. The architecture spoke of this belief. Stone arches framed pools like altars. Candles flickered on marble edges. Every ripple caught the light as if the water itself carried blessings. When one entered, they left behind more than shoes and cloak, they left behind the world. Time slowed. Voices softened. The air thickened with the scent of rosemary and mint, and steam rose around faces until all features blurred, until everyone looked like everyone else. That was the hidden grace of the bathhouse. The vanishing of difference. For a few precious hours, the lord and the peasant, the scholar and the servant, all shared the same warmth, the same silence, the same small relief from the cold weight of living. And when they emerged, skin pink, eyes calm, hearts quiet, they carried something invisible with them, a gentleness, a softness that lingered even after the chill returned. No one left cleaner than their soul allowed. But everyone left lighter, as though the steam had lifted a piece of sorrow from their breath. Steam rose like soft smoke from copper basins, curling through the rafters of the bathhouse. Inside, the air shimmered, thick with warmth, faint with prayer. Every bath had its recipe, and every recipe had a meaning. The water was never just water. It was rosemary for remembrance, mint for strength, sage for wisdom, marjoram for peace. To the medieval mind, herbs were not mere plants, they were voices of God, each one carrying a small message of mercy. When attendants mixed the herbs into steaming pots, they murmured the names softly, as though reciting psalms. Rosemary for purity. Mint for renewal. Thyme for courage. Chamomile for calm. The scents drifted through the mist, filling every breath with purpose. In those days, fragrance was prayer, invisible, yet believed to rise directly to heaven. The faithful said that God could hear through scent what words could not speak. And so, when a person entered the bathhouse weary and worn, they were met not by silence, but by the breath of living herbs. Their oils seeping into skin. Their warmth loosening sorrow. Their perfume clinging gently to the soul. For the poor, who could not afford soap or oils, mint and sage were their angels. They grew by the roadside, hardy and humble, ready to serve any who sought them. A handful of crushed mint in a wooden tub turned cold river water into a small sacrament. In monasteries, the baths were simpler still, a stone basin, a few leaves of myrtle or laurel. Yet monks saw each droplet as holy, whispering, "As this water cleans the body, so may grace cleanse the heart." They believed that purity began in humility, in the willingness to wash oneself without pride, to tend the body with gratitude instead of vanity. Even physicians of the age spoke of herbs as mediators between flesh and faith. Galenic texts described baths of lavender and thyme for fevers of the mind, for melancholy, for fear, for unrest. A warm soak was both medicine and mercy. And within the dim light of the bathhouse, one could almost see the belief made real. Steam rose from the water like souls released. Herbs floated like small green prayers. And each exhale seemed lighter than the last. Sometimes, after hours of soaking, a silence would fall, heavy, complete. No one spoke. Only the dripping of water, the faint sighs of relaxation, the whisper of steam escaping stone. It felt sacred. Not in the way of churches, with candles and chant, but in the stillness that followed warmth. Outside, the world was full of dirt, of toil, of fear. Inside, for a brief time, it was all washed away. And when they rose, skin glowing, hearts soothed, they left behind bowls of wilted herbs and cooling water, like offerings to time itself. Even as centuries passed, the herbs remembered. Their scent lingers still, in gardens, in kitchens, in the folds of history, the smell of an old truth. Cleanliness is not the absence of dirt, it is the presence of care. Evening always came softly to the bathhouse. The torches burned low. The pools, still warm, shimmered under a haze of silver steam. And in that dim light, words began to move, softly, secretly, like ripples on water. For in the baths, people spoke differently. Not loud, not proud, but low, slow, honest. Steam, it seemed, had the power to unburden the tongue. A merchant might confess his fears to a soldier beside him, fears he'd never share by daylight. A midwife might whisper a prayer for the baby she'd lost. Two friends might speak of love, of loss, of longing, their faces half hidden in the mist, made equal by warmth. And always, the pools listened. The water didn't judge, it only reflected the trembling light of torches, the soft sway of words. Secrets floated, settled, disappeared. It was said that steam had memory, that the air itself remembered every sigh, every confession. Old attendants claimed they could sometimes hear the walls breathe, as if the stone had grown full of voices, too heavy to stay silent forever. But no one feared it. For to whisper in the bathhouse was not to sin, it was to shed. People came heavy with their week's weight, the grind of work, the ache of loneliness, the quiet shame of human living, and they left lighter, cleaner, calmer. What soap could not wash, warmth could ease. Children splashed in smaller pools, laughter rising like sparks. Old men sat with eyes closed, letting the heat smooth the years from their faces. Women combed wet hair and hummed songs that had no words, only comfort. It was not a church, yet faith lingered there, not in the form of doctrine, but in the miracle of presence. To share silence, to share warmth, to share breath, it was enough. And perhaps that is why the bathhouse came to be called, in some towns, the whispering pools. Not because the water truly spoke, but because every sound inside, the dripping, the sighing, the murmuring of human hearts, felt alive, aware, listening. When dawn neared, the fires were banked low. The last bathers rose, skin shining like polished bronze, eyes heavy but peaceful. They dressed slowly, wrapped in linen, hair damp with herbs and light. Before leaving, some would pause by the door, place a hand on the warm stone wall, as though saying farewell to something unseen. A moment of gratitude. A silent promise to return. Outside, the chill met them again, but they no longer minded. They carried the warmth within. The remembered touch of water. The scent of rosemary and mint. The faint hum of voices in the mist. And so the bathhouse slept again. Filled with stories. Heavy with peace. In time, many of those places would crumble, stone to dust, pools to earth. But their spirit, like steam, never vanished. It only rose, unseen, eternal. To join the long breath of human kindness that still warms the world today. Long before the bells called the faithful to prayer, the scent had already begun to rise. It slipped through cracks in stone, wound around pillars, and lingered in the folds of woolen robes. It was not yet smoke, not yet seen, only a breath of holiness, drifting where words could not go. In the medieval world, scent was the first prayer. Before dawn, in cathedrals cold as caves, priests lit small grains of frankincense in bronze censers. The air thickened, the flame whispered, and suddenly the invisible became visible, the smoke rising, twisting, reaching upward like a soul returning home. To those who knelt in silence, this was more than perfume. It was presence. The scent of the sacred. Each fragrance told a story. Frankincense for faith, sharp and bright, a scent that burned clean. Myrrh for mourning, sweet, dark, and slow, the smell of tears made holy. Cedarwood for strength. Rose for love. Sandalwood for peace. To mix these scents was to weave emotion into air, to build a bridge of fragrance between heaven and earth. Even outside the church, people believed that perfume carried prayer. A mother would drop rosewater onto her child's blanket, whispering, "May angels find you by this scent." A soldier, before leaving for war, would rub his hands with lavender, believing its smell would remind God to watch over him. And lovers, separated by distance, would press handkerchiefs steeped in crushed petals, small messages of devotion, carried not by ink but by air. In monasteries, where silence ruled, incense spoke for the tongue. Each wisp of smoke said what words could not: sorrow, hope, gratitude. It curled through the corridors and cloisters, marking the hours of prayer. When the brothers rose for matins in the dark hours before dawn, the scent guided them like a thread of light. It reminded them that the unseen was real, that faith could be touched, not with eyes or hands, but with breath. Perfume was also a memory of paradise. Medieval people believed that heaven would smell like the garden before the fall, roses without thorns, lilies without wilt, air filled with the sweetness of divine creation. To fill a room with fragrance was to rehearse for heaven. And yet, perfume was humble, too. The same oils used in churches were often found in kitchens and homes: rosemary to cleanse the air, thyme to ward off sickness, violet to comfort the dying. The line between holy and human blurred in the smoke. To light incense was not to summon God, but to remember him already there. The scent filled the space, and for a moment, everyone breathed the same prayer, one without words, without borders, without end. It drifted upward, higher and higher, until the air itself seemed to glow, as if every particle carried faith within it. And when the smoke finally faded, it left behind something unseen yet enduring. A quiet, invisible echo. The soul of the scent, still praying in silence. In the medieval world, scent was the language of passage. It spoke when the heart could not, when the lips trembled, when life itself thinned to a thread of breath. The same vial that blessed a newborn's brow might, years later, bless the same brow at death. Because to the people of that time, fragrance was not bound by life, it was the breath of the eternal, a soft bridge between beginning and end. In small wooden chests beside every altar rested bottles of holy oil, olive oil infused with herbs, sanctified by prayer. Some were thick and green, others light and golden, shimmering like captured sunlight. They were used for everything sacred. To anoint kings. To bless the sick. To comfort the dying. A single drop could mark the forehead, tracing the shape of the cross. Its scent, faint rosemary, sometimes myrrh, lingered long after the touch had gone. For the living, the oil meant renewal. When illness came, priests and healers alike massaged warmed oil into the chest or hands, believing it carried God's mercy through the skin. Mothers anointed their children before journeys, whispering protection into the air. Soldiers rubbed oil on their swords, saying, "Let my blade remember mercy." For the dead, the same oil meant release. When breath stilled and silence came, the ritual began. Water first, cool and clean, to wash away the dust of the world. Then oil, fragrant and slow, to bless the vessel that had carried a soul. Hands were rubbed gently, as if to remind them of kindness. Lips were touched, to seal the last word in peace. Eyes, sometimes closed with a soft stroke of rosemary oil, as though scent could guide them to the light. The room filled with perfume, not sharp or mournful, but calm, like an evening meadow after rain. It was said that angels could follow that fragrance home. And those who watched, the family, the monks, the healers, found comfort in that aroma. It told them that nothing truly vanished, that what once breathed would breathe again, somewhere beyond the reach of time. Perfume blurred the edge of grief. It lingered on the sheets, in the hair, in the wood of the coffin. Days later, when someone entered the room and caught the faint scent of rosemary or myrrh, their heart would stir, not in sorrow, but in remembrance. Because the oil was not only for the dead. It was for those left behind, a promise, silent but steadfast. Love does not end, it only changes form. And so, scent became a thread, delicate yet enduring, binding the living and the gone in one shared breath. To hold a vial of oil in those days was to hold both beginnings and endings, joy and farewell, blessing and release. In the stillness of the church, when all else faded, the chanting, the tears, the prayers, only one thing remained. The faint perfume in the air. Rising. Remembering. Returning home. In the heart of every medieval town, there was always one door that smelled of heaven and fire. It belonged to the alchemist, part scholar, part dreamer, part priest of the unseen. Inside, bottles lined the shelves like sleeping stars. Each was filled with liquid gold, some clear as tears, others green as moss, some dark as memory. The air was thick with the mingled scents of rose, cedar, wine, and smoke. To step inside was to step out of time. The alchemist's hands were stained with years of oil and ash. He spoke softly to his ingredients, as though they could hear him. To the crushed petals, to the roots, to the little flakes of resin that caught the candlelight. He was not merely making perfume. He was translating the divine into scent. Each mixture began with silence. A prayer, a pause, a breath, for even the smallest error could shift beauty into poison, fragrance into fire. He measured drops of rose oil like blessings, added a grain of amber for warmth, a leaf of sage for wisdom. When the mixture was perfect, he would lift the vial toward the flame, watching how the light moved through it. If the light bends softly, he would whisper, "Then the soul of the oil is awake." Some called this superstition. Others called it science. But to him, and to those who sought his craft, it was faith. Healers came to him for oils that calmed fevered minds. Lovers came for perfumes that promised remembrance. Priests came for incense to fill their cathedrals with divine sweetness. And the alchemist gave freely, not gold for gold, but grace for grace. For he believed that scent could do what sermons could not. It could heal without words. To inhale lavender was to breathe forgiveness. To touch frankincense was to touch eternity. To carry rose oil on one's skin was to carry light itself. In the quiet hours of night, when the town outside slept, he would work alone. Mixing, grinding, distilling, humming hymns under his breath. The flame glowed, the air shimmered, and it seemed that even the walls began to dream. He kept a single bottle for himself, small, unmarked, filled with a pale golden liquid. No one knew its scent. He said it was the smell of peace, something he had never yet perfected. When he died, they found the vial still full. They opened it, and the scent that rose was neither rose nor myrrh nor any herb they knew. It was soft, warm, and endlessly kind. The smell of forgiveness. The smell of mourning after sorrow. The smell of something greater than time. They called it the alchemist's gift. And for years afterward, whenever someone lit incense in his honor, The smoke curled into shapes that looked almost like hands. Hands still working, still blessing. Still turning the unseen into beauty. At the edge of every village, beyond the hedgerows and the grazing fields, there was always a well. Stone ringed, moss softened, and silent except for the song of dripping water. It stood like an old heart still beating beneath the earth. Women came with wooden buckets. Children came with laughter. Old men came with prayers. And all of them knew, this was no ordinary place. For in medieval times, water was divine. It healed the sick, blessed the newborn, and forgave the weary. It was said that every well had a guardian spirit, a saint, a nymph, or a soul who had given its life to protect the flow. The villagers of Little Mere believed their well was watched over by Saint Elena. A girl who, centuries before, had been thrown into the spring for refusing to marry a cruel lord. They said that her tears became the first drops of the well. And that her spirit still lingered, not in sorrow, but in calm. At dawn, when the mist still hung like a dream, you could see women kneeling beside the water. Their reflections trembling as they whispered secrets into the ripples. They didn't pray with words. They prayed with silence. They would dip their hands, touch their faces, and carry the chill back home as if it were a blessing. On feast days, the well was decorated with garlands. Wildflowers woven together with ribbons, rosemary, and ivy. The air smelled of damp stone and devotion. Children tossed coins into the depths, watching the silver flash and vanish. Believing the well remembered every wish. The priest, though wary of old pagan tales, still blessed the water each year. He understood, even holiness had deep roots in myth. "Water remembers," he said once. And the people nodded, though they did not fully know what he meant. Some came to the well for healing. A woman with aching bones. A boy with fevered eyes. A man haunted by dreams he could not name. They would drink from the ladle carved of ash wood, feeling the coolness slide down their throats like forgiveness. And sometimes, they swore, the pain lifted. Not gone, but gentled. For water, they believed, was alive. It listened, learned, and gave back what the heart dared to release. On moonlit nights, the well looked like a mirror for the sky. Owls watched from the trees. And those who wandered too close swore they heard soft voices below. The murmurs of the healed, or the song of the saint herself, echoing up through the dark. The villagers never feared those sounds. They said it was the earth breathing. And the well reminding them that every prayer, no matter how quiet, falls somewhere it can be heard. The road to any holy place was always long, and always followed the sound of water. Rivers were the first guides of humankind. Before maps, before saints, before words carved in stone. They whispered of direction, of persistence. Of how even the smallest stream finds its way to the sea. In medieval times, pilgrims carried little more than faith. And faith was often heavier than stone. They walked for weeks, feet blistered, clothes damp from dew and rain. Following rivers that wound like stories across the land. Some sought forgiveness. Some sought healing. And some simply sought peace. At dawn, when mist floated over the water like a pale veil, they would kneel at the edge of a river. Dip their hands in. And let the chill awaken their weary flesh. The river remembers all sins, one old pilgrim murmured once. But it forgives more than any priest. The rivers were generous. They gave coolness to the fevered, clarity to the confused, and reflection to the sorrowful. At night, when campfires flickered along the banks, the pilgrims sang softly, not hymns, but half-forgotten folk songs. Melodies older than churches. Songs that belonged to both man and water. Sometimes they met villagers who came to fill their jugs, and were offered bread in exchange for stories. The pilgrims spoke of faraway shrines, of springs said to heal blindness, of lakes that glowed under moonlight, of wells where miracles still walked. But what they truly carried was not destination, but transformation. Because along the river's path, something subtle changed. The noise of the world, the gossip of towns, the weight of sin, the ache of memory, washed away, one step, one current, one ripple at a time. By the time they reached their holy place, a small chapel built beside a spring, perhaps, or a pool guarded by willows, they were no longer who they had been. They would wash their faces in the blessed water, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing, sometimes simply breathing. It was not always the body that was healed, but the burden that was lifted. And when they left, the river followed them still, in the rhythm of their heartbeats, in the softness of their steps, in the quiet courage to begin again. No pilgrim ever walked the same river twice, for both man and water are always changing. It began, always, with silence. The kind of silence that feels alive, as though the air itself were waiting. In a small stone church, lit only by a single candle and a narrow window of colored glass, a priest stood beside a basin of water. Its surface trembled faintly, catching the light. A living mirror for all that came before it. The villagers entered one by one. Children cradled in arms, the sick carried on makeshift beds, the old leaning on sticks smoothed by generations of hands. They came not for spectacle, but for renewal. For in those days, the soul was thought to gather dust. Not the kind that clings to clothes, but the kind that weighs down the spirit. And water, clear and cold, was believed to wash it away. When a child was baptized, the priest would whisper words that had crossed centuries, touching the infant's brow with drops of holy water. The baby would shiver. A first encounter with both fear and grace. The mother would weep softly, not from sadness, but from the fragile awe of knowing that this water, drawn from the same earth where her ancestors once knelt, was now part of her child's beginning. For the dying, too, water came as blessing. It was sprinkled on the brow, as though to say, "Return to the dust, but leave your pain behind." There were pilgrims who sought not baptism nor death, but cleansing from within. They would wade into rivers at dawn, the fog curling around them like incense, and let the current pull at their robes, their fears, their memories. Some whispered confessions to the water, as though it could carry their secrets into oblivion. Others sang, low, trembling hymns, voices blending with the sound of moving water, until it was impossible to tell which was man and which was river. For them, this was not ritual. It was rebirth. The monks in their abbeys spoke often of aqua pura, pure water. But they did not mean its color or taste. They meant the way it changed a person who approached it with humility. They said that the soul, when washed with faith, gleamed like wet stone under morning light. And so, in every village, every monastery, every field where a spring bubbled up, water was both mirror and mercy. It reflected the truth of those who looked into it. The young, the weary, the guilty. And in reflecting, it forgave. When the priest finally poured the last of the blessed water onto the church floor, it spread into the cracks of the stone, vanishing quietly, as if returning to where it had always belonged. Outside, the rain began to fall. Softly at first, then fuller, stronger, until every roof sang with it. And the people, stepping out of the church, lifted their faces to the sky. Drops touched their foreheads, their lips, their eyes. No one spoke. They didn't need to. For in that moment, they understood that every storm, every tear, every river was part of the same endless washing. The washing of souls. She lived where the forest began to thicken, where moss grew over fallen stones and the air smelled of rain and time. They called her Mother On, though no one knew her true name. Some said she had once been a nun who left her convent for the wild. Others whispered she was older than the trees themselves, born of roots and moonlight. But when pain came, fever, wound, sorrow, or curse, the villagers came to her door. It was a small cottage, smoke curling from the chimney, bundles of herbs hanging from the rafters, thyme, yarrow, sage, rosemary, lavender. Their colors fading but their scent eternal. The floor was swept clean with pine boughs, and the air shimmered faintly, like something had been blessed there long ago. She spoke little. Her voice was low and steady, like a stream hidden under stone. When a child came with cough, she would grind dried elderflowers with honey, murmuring the same phrase she used for every illness. The earth knows what the body forgets. When a woman came weeping from childbirth, she would lay cool cloths on her brow, and sing an old, wordless song, half prayer, half lullaby. And when the men came, proud and reluctant, she would hand them bitter brews without explanation. And they would drink. For even pride bends when fever burns. Yet her greatest gift was not her herbs, but her hands. They moved slowly, deliberately, as if every touch was a conversation. She would rest her palms upon a brow, a shoulder, a heart. And in the silence between breaths, something would shift. Some said it was magic. Others said it was faith. But perhaps it was simply presence. The kind that listens deeper than words. Children loved her. They brought her feathers, stones, bits of colored glass. She would smile, tuck each treasure into a wooden box, and say, "A gift is a kind of healing too." No one ever saw her angry. No one ever saw her afraid. When plague swept through nearby towns, she stayed, walking from house to house with her bundle of herbs, burning rosemary in doorways, and whispering blessings over those too weak to rise. Many died, as death was no stranger in those times. But those who lived said her voice had been the last soft thing they heard before sleep. At her death, years later, they buried her near a spring. They placed wildflowers on her grave, And by morning, they said, new shoots had already begun to grow. The villagers still visited that place, even centuries after her cottage fell to dust. The herbs there grew stronger, sweeter, greener than anywhere else. And when the wind moved through the leaves, it carried the faintest sound, like the hush of a woman's voice saying, "The earth remembers you." The monastery at St. Arden's stood on a hill, wrapped in fog each morning like a thought still forming. Its walls were weathered, its bells soft and deep, and its garden, oh, its garden was a hymn in green. Behind the chapel, beyond the cloisters, there was a small courtyard where herbs grew in perfect squares. Rows of mint, sage, valerian, and rue, tended by patient hands, watered at dawn, harvested before the heat of day. It was said that every leaf knew a prayer by heart. The monks who worked there were not men of ambition. They were men of care. Their lives followed the rhythm of bells. Matins, work, silence, meal, prayer, sleep. But between those hours of devotion lay their quiet calling, the infirmary. A long, stone chamber, cool and still, with beds of straw covered in clean linen. Candles burned at the head of each bed, their light small but constant, like faith itself. Brother Thomas, the elder of the healers, had been tending the sick for more than 30 years. His hands were rough but gentle, his face lined with both sorrow and peace. He would say, "A wound is but a door. Through it, the body speaks what the soul cannot." The monks wrote by the light of tallow lamps, copying recipes for salves and poultices into thick, leather-bound books. They crushed herbs with pestles of stone, mixing honey with comfrey, wine with crushed garlic, believing that healing was not invention but remembrance. A way of listening to what the earth had already taught. When the villagers came, a farmer with a broken hand, a child with fever, a mother pale with grief, they were received not as beggars but as brothers and sisters. Each was washed, fed, and prayed for. Not all were cured, but all were comforted. At night, the sound of the infirmary was not suffering. It was breathing, soft and rhythmic, like the sea beyond the walls. The monks believed that every illness had two parts, one of flesh, and one of faith. They treated both. A salve for the wound, a psalm for the heart. Sometimes, Brother Thomas would wake before dawn, walk to the chapel, and light a single candle for the ones who could not be saved. He never wept, he only whispered their names. For in his heart, he believed that no life was lost, only returned. On feast days, the infirmary was filled with light. The bells rang, the air smelled of herbs and incense. And for a few hours, even pain seemed holy. Outside, the herb garden swayed in the wind. Bees moved between flowers, and the sound of their wings was like a low, eternal prayer. The monastery still stands, its stones worn smooth by time, its walls half ruined. But in spring, the same herbs bloom along the old courtyard walls. If you lean close enough, you can still smell the faint trace of mint and rosemary, and perhaps hear the echo of Brother Thomas's voice. Heal with patience. Bless with hands. Remember, even silence cures. There were stories told in every age of those who healed without herb or prayer, only with their hands. In small villages and lonely valleys, they were known by many names. The blessed, the touched, the anointed, the strange. Some said they were chosen by God. Others whispered they were cursed. But all agreed on one thing. When their hands rested upon you, something changed. One such woman lived near the coast, in a hut of driftwood and sea grass. Her name was Ira, and her eyes were the color of morning rain. She had no tools, no medicines. When the sick were brought to her, she would only ask for silence. Then, she would take their hands in hers, close her eyes, and breathe. Slowly, as if syncing her heartbeat to theirs. Sometimes she whispered words no one understood. Sometimes she said nothing at all. It was said that her palms grew warm when she touched the dying. And that warmth spread like dawn through their cold bodies. Some recovered. Some did not. But all felt the same thing. Peace. Even those beyond saving died with calm upon their faces. As though pain had finally loosened its hold. The villagers feared her, yet they came to her still. They left offerings, bread, shells, bits of ribbon. And never met her gaze for long. Ira never asked for thanks. She only said, "Grace does not come from me. It passes through." One winter, when fever swept through the fishing town, she worked until her hands trembled. Children were carried to her by mothers whose faces were hollow with hope. And though she could not save them all, the town said she softened the sorrow. As if her touch reminded the grieving that even loss could be gentle. When she herself fell ill, she refused the monk's herbs and the healer's care. She simply sat by the sea, watching the waves fold over one another like prayers. Her final words were quiet, but those who stood close heard them clearly. The water heals. The hands only remember. After her death, they found her hut empty. Only a bowl of salt water on the table. And 2 seashells resting side by side. Years passed, and the fever returned. But some claimed that when they washed the sick with seawater, it grew faintly warm. As though someone unseen still blessed it. And so her legend grew. They called her a saint, though no church ever wrote her name. But along the cliffs, where the wind carries the scent of salt and mercy, there are still those who say, if you listen closely at night, the sea itself breathes with her. At the edge of every bustling medieval town stood a low stone building that breathed steam into the morning air. Its windows glowed with candlelight, and its door, though humble, was always open. Above it hung a sign carved with a single symbol, a bowl of water and a sprig of rosemary. This was the bathhouse. And inside it, life unfolded like a hymn to warmth. The air was heavy with the scents of lavender, thyme, and soaproot. Water dripped rhythmically from wooden buckets. Voices echoed softly against the tiled walls. Men and women came at different hours, carrying small bundles wrapped in linen. Clean clothes, a comb, and perhaps a small cake of perfumed soap. For many, this was their only true luxury. An hour away from toil, hunger, and the cold press of the world. The bathhouse keeper, often a woman of calm authority, moved like a conductor through the rising steam. She poured buckets of hot water, adjusted coals, and added herbs to the basins, mint for cooling, rose for the heart. and chamomile for those whose souls were heavy. Here, walls were made not of judgment, but forgiveness. The poor and the wealthy bathed alike. The merchant's wife sat beside the baker's daughter. The scribe soaked his ink-stained hands beside the blacksmith. And in that mingled water, all were simply human. Equal in their desire to be clean, to be free, to be renewed. It was said that steam could carry prayers faster than sound. Many whispered confessions to the mist. Small secrets that rose and vanished with the vapor. Some even believed that angels lingered in the air above the pools, catching each sigh and turning it into mercy. The bathhouse was not only a place of washing. It was a place of healing. The old came with aching joints. The sick came with wounds wrapped in linen. The weary came with nothing but the wish to feel whole again. And when they left, their skin pink, their hair damp, their eyes softened by warmth, they said they felt lighter. As if some invisible burden had been rinsed away. Before closing the doors each night, the keeper would empty the basins, scrub the stones, and whisper a blessing over the still warm air. May all who bathe here find peace, and all who suffer find rest. When the fires died and only the moonlight shone through the high windows, the bathhouse seemed almost alive. Steam curling in ghostly shapes, water glimmering faintly in the silence. And sometimes, the townsfolk said, if you passed by late enough, you could still hear faint laughter. As if the walls themselves remembered every soul who had found comfort there. The noble bath did not begin with water. It began with ritual. Servants entered the ladies' chamber at dawn, carrying copper kettles steaming with freshly drawn water. The room itself was already alive with the fragrance of rose, myrtle, and orange blossom. Curtains of fine linen swayed gently as the air warmed. A great wooden tub stood at the center of the room, lined with silk cloth to spare delicate skin from the rough touch of oak. Candles burned low, their flames trembling in golden bowls of oil. A small harp played softly in the corner. Not by musicians' hands, but by the breeze that slipped through the latticed window. When the lady entered, she was greeted not by servants, but by silence. A silence fragrant and full of reverence. Her hair, unbound, fell like a dark river over her shoulders. She stepped into the perfumed water, where petals floated, red, white, and gold. The warmth embraced her like a prayer answered. Every sigh, every ripple was part of the ceremony. For in those days, the act of bathing was not private. It was sacred display. A mark of refinement, proof of virtue. And, often, a whisper of temptation. Gentlemen too bathed in chambers of marble and brass. They were attended by valets who poured wine into the water, believing it would purify the flesh and fortify the spirit. The wealthy used soaps from distant lands, olive oil from Spain, ambergris from the east, and tiny cakes of musk brought by merchants who had crossed deserts. After the bath, the body was dried with cloths of linen, then dusted with fine powders, iris root, crushed pearls, and ground sandalwood. Each touch was soft as wind on petals. It was said that some queens of Europe bathed not in plain water but in milk and honey, believing it preserved their youth. And whether truth or legend, the air of their rooms always carried The sweetness of flowers long after the candles were snuffed. The scented chamber was more than a room. It was a mirror of the soul. How one bathed, it was said, revealed how one lived. To bathe with calmness meant harmony. To bathe in haste meant unrest. And to bathe surrounded by fragrance meant one sought not only to clean the skin, but to soften the heart. When the ritual ended, the tub was emptied, and servants sprinkled dried herbs across the floor. A final benediction of thyme, mint, and lavender. The chamber, now quiet again, smelled of steam and grace. And in that hush, you could almost believe that purity had a scent of its own. The pilgrim's bath was not a ceremony of luxury. It was a prayer whispered through water. They arrived at rivers at dusk. Their feet cracked and sore from weeks of walking. Their cloaks heavy with road dust and rain. The river waited silently. Its surface like a mirror that reflected both sky and soul. There were no silken curtains. No rose petals floating in bowls. Only cold water, the sound of wind in reeds, and the trembling light of a new moon. They would kneel, dip their hands, and let the chill bite gently at their fingers. The first splash was always the hardest. A gasp, a shiver. But then came release. To the pilgrim, cleanliness was not vanity. It was an act of surrender. A washing away of pride, weariness, and sin. Their water was drawn not from gilded pitchers, but from the veins of the earth itself. Pure, cold, alive. Some would murmur psalms as they bathed, their voices blending with the sound of flowing water. Cleanse me, O Lord, that I may walk in your light. Others were silent, their thoughts heavy with memories of what they had left behind. A family, a lost love, a mistake they could not undo. In those moments, the act of bathing became a kind of forgiveness. They washed their feet and hands first, the instruments of their journey, then their faces, as though to unburden the eyes that had seen too much. When dawn came, they dried themselves not with linen, but with the soft wind that carried the smell of wet grass. They tied their sandals again, shouldered their packs, and moved onward, lighter now, their hearts as clean as the rivers they had left behind. Sometimes, villagers watched from the banks. Children curious, women cautious. And the pilgrims would smile, offering blessings instead of words. The villagers might bring bread, or fill the pilgrims' flasks with warm milk, and in return, receive a story of distant shrines, of miracles by moonlight, of the holy water that healed without ever being touched. That was the pilgrim's way. No jewels, no perfume, no marble basin. Only faith, and the courage to let the cold water remind them that they still belong to the earth. When they finally reached their sacred destination, they were already clean. Not because of the river's water, but because of the journey's humility. The pilgrim's wash was never just about the body. It was about remembering how even the simplest drop can carry the weight of the divine. Before words were written in books, they were written in smoke. In medieval towns, long before the church bells called the faithful to prayer, you could tell where devotion lived, not by sight, but by scent. Frankincense curled upward from stone altars, its trail rising like a silver serpent toward vaulted ceilings. Myrrh, with its deep, honeyed bitterness, clung to the robes of monks and lingered in chapels long after prayers had ended. Perfume was not vanity. It was a language of the soul. And everyone, from kings to shepherds, spoke it, whether they knew it or not. In a noble's chamber, the air shimmered with the sweetness of roses, violets, and ground amber. Perfumed oil was brushed behind the ears and upon the wrists, not for seduction, but for serenity. For it was believed that fragrance could balance the humors of the body, drive away sickness, and invite divine grace. Each scent told a story. Rose for purity, cedar for protection, sage for wisdom, lavender for peace, musk for courage, frankincense for faith. To wear a scent was to carry a prayer, to turn the invisible into something holy. Even peasants, though poor, found ways to join this silent poetry. They hung bundles of herbs above their doors, mint to freshen the air, thyme to chase away evil spirits, and sweet marjoram to remind them of summer during long winters. In monasteries, monks distilled fragrances not for pleasure, but for healing. They crushed blossoms and barks in stone mortars, turning gardens into apothecaries. The air around abbeys smelled of rosemary and resolve. But nowhere was the language of scent more sacred than in the church. During Mass, priests swung golden censers, their chains clinking softly as clouds of incense unfurled like spirits. The faithful would close their eyes, letting the fragrance wrap them in reverence. For to them, scent was not a luxury. It was the breath of heaven. It filled empty spaces the way light fills stained glass, and lingered long after words faded. There were times when entire towns would smell of devotion, especially on feast days, when streets were strewn with petals, and children ran laughing through the fragrance of lilies. Even death had its scent, not of decay, but of mercy. Bodies were anointed with spiced oils, so that the soul's final journey would be sweet. And so, across centuries and faiths, humanity spoke this same gentle tongue. One drop at a time, one breath at a time, until the world itself became a kind of perfume. Because to live was to inhale, and to remember was to smell. Even now, if you close your eyes, perhaps you can still sense it. That faint trace of rose and smoke, carried from an age where fragrance was prayer, and every scent had a soul. In a time when the air was often heavy with smoke and sickness, there were whispers of a different scent. A fragrance that came not from flowers or oils, but from the bodies of the blessed. They called it the odor of sanctity. When a saint died, it was said that the stench of decay never came. Instead, the air grew sweet, like crushed violets, like honey warmed by sun, like spring itself rising from the cold of death. Chroniclers wrote of it with trembling awe. The scent would fill entire rooms, lingering for days, even seeping through stone. Some claimed it was a sign of purity, that their souls were so clean, so aflame with divine love, that even flesh could not spoil. In Italy, in France, in far corners of England, People gathered around the tombs of holy men and women, pressing handkerchiefs to the air, hoping to catch a trace of heaven. The relics, bones, cloth, even the wooden boxes that held them, were said to hold that sacred perfume, a fragrance beyond earthly measure. It was not always sweet in the way of roses or spice. Sometimes it was subtle, like the scent of rain on dry stone, or the breath of a candle before it dies. But to those who smelled it, the meaning was clear. Holiness had its own perfume. In monasteries, stories spread quietly of Saint Clare's veil that smelled of lilies, of Saint Francis whose hands carried the fragrance of wild herbs, of Saint Catherine, whose dying room was filled with a scent like freshly baked bread. These were not fantasies to the faithful. They were proof. Proof that goodness could transform matter, that the body itself could be rewritten by grace. And so, people came to believe that every saint was a garden, a living bouquet of virtues. Patience was lavender. Humility was myrrh. Faith was rose. Even after death, that garden did not wither. It only changed form, becoming something unseen yet undeniable. The scent of holiness was also a comfort for those who mourned. It was a promise whispered through the air. Death is not the end. Something beautiful remains. The idea spread beyond the church walls. Even those who were not saints began to cleanse their homes with fragrant herbs after funerals, not merely to mask sorrow, but to invite hope back in. The poor, who could not afford perfume, burned rosemary and juniper in small clay bowls, believing the smoke would guide lost souls to peace. And perhaps, somewhere between myth and miracle, they were right. Because every fragrance is a memory. And holiness, after all, is nothing more than the memory of love made eternal. When the pilgrims left shrines that held these perfumed relics, they carried something invisible home. They might return with dust on their shoes, but in their hearts lingered a scent they could never name, the faint echo of divinity itself. The monastery garden was not only for food or medicine. It was for miracles in scent. Behind tall stone walls, where silence was broken only by bees and bells, grew the raw materials of wonder. Rose, sage, hyssop, lavender, mint, and 1,000 humble leaves whispering to the wind. Each morning, before prayer, monks would walk through those rows barefoot, their robes brushing against dew and time. They knew every plant by touch, every fragrance by heart. The garden, to them, was not earthly. It was a map of creation, a living book written in color and scent. In a small workshop beyond the cloister, the air shimmered with the mingled perfume of herbs and oil. This was the alchemist's cell. Here, a monk bent over a copper alembic, watching drops of distilled essence fall like liquid jewels. He believed that within every flower lived a spark of divine truth, and that by releasing it, by separating the pure from the impure, one could glimpse God's perfection. Perfume making was not vanity. It was a prayer in motion. Each stirring, each heating, each drop condensed, was a meditation on creation itself. The recipes were written in Latin, half prayer, half science. Take petals of rose at sunrise. Add holy water and oil of olive. Distill until the fragrance lifts the spirit. These alchemists believed that scent could heal sadness, strengthen the soul, and purify the body. Some perfumes were made to protect against plague, others to calm the heart before worship. They burned resins not only for their sweetness, but for the way they lifted the air toward heaven. And though they worked with earth and flame, they saw themselves not as scientists, but as stewards of divine mystery. Beyond the monasteries, there were mystics, women and men who mixed oils in secret. They blended amber and sandalwood, jasmine and musk, believing that scent could open the spirit's inner eye. One such mystic wrote, "Each fragrance is a soul released from its prison. When I inhale, I breathe creation itself." To these seekers, perfume was not a luxury of nobles. It was a bridge between worlds, a way to speak to the unseen. The alchemist's garden bloomed through centuries. Its secrets carried from abbey to apothecary, from prayer to perfume bottle. Even as time moved on, the essence remained. To smell was to remember. To distill was to understand. To create fragrance was to touch eternity. And so, long before modern chemistry, monks in silent cloisters and dreamers in dim rooms were already performing a quiet kind of resurrection, bringing spirit from matter, breathing life into air. The alchemist's garden never truly vanished. It lived still in every drop of rosewater, every wisp of incense, every breath that carries the memory of something divine. The story of water in the Middle Ages did not end with roses and rivers. It ended in silence. A silence heavy with fear. For centuries, people had bathed in warm perfumed waters, believing cleanliness was next to godliness. But as the centuries turned, the world's belief began to shift. It started quietly. A whisper in the corners of monasteries, a murmur in royal courts, that water could enter the body through the skin. And if it could enter, so too could disease. When the great plagues came, that whisper became a scream. Cities filled with the scent of burning herbs and vinegar. Doors were sealed. Bathhouses, once places of laughter and warmth, were closed, abandoned. Their tubs dry and cold. People no longer sought comfort in water. They sought protection from it. The very act of bathing, once a ritual of renewal, became an act of danger. Doctors warned, "Keep your pores closed. Avoid steam, avoid warmth, avoid the bath." And so, for nearly 2 centuries, Europe forgot the pleasure of washing. The rivers ran as they always had, but fewer feet touched their banks. The fountains in courtyards went silent, their marble basins gathering dust instead of ripples. Only the wealthy kept to small, careful rituals. A cloth dampened with wine to wipe the face. A dab of rosewater to disguise the scent of fear. Perfume took the place of bathing. People no longer washed. They masked. A nobleman might wear a pouch of lavender around his neck, believing it warded off sickness. A lady might press clove-scented oranges to her lips, hoping the fragrance would protect her lungs. Even kings feared water. It is said that one monarch bathed only twice in his life. At birth and before his wedding. And yet, beneath all that superstition, the memory of the old ways endured. There were still villagers who washed in streams at dawn. Still monks who drew water for their sacred rituals. Still mothers who bathed their children in warm milk and whispered, "Be clean, my heart." The bath had not vanished entirely. It had only gone into hiding, waiting for an age brave enough to remember it. When the Renaissance came, and the world began to rediscover the wisdom it had buried, water returned, quietly at first, then joyfully. But the medieval silence remained. A reminder of how fragile faith in cleanliness could be. And how quickly fear can drain even the sweetest pools. To stand at the edge of that forgotten bathhouse now, you can still smell the ghosts of soap and lavender. You can almost hear the laughter that once echoed off its stone walls. And then, the hush that followed when fear entered. The vanishing bath was more than the loss of water. It was the loss of innocence. Yet even as it disappeared, it left behind one small truth. Still clear as a drop upon the skin. To cleanse is to trust. And to fear the water is to forget that the world itself was once born from it. When water became an enemy, perfume became salvation. Across Europe, from candlelit palaces to narrow cobbled streets, the air thickened with scent. Not the fresh scent of rivers or rain, but the crafted fragrance of survival. They called it dry washing. A ritual not of water, but of disguise. At dawn, noblewomen sat before their mirrors. Not to cleanse, but to conceal. A servant would bring a silver tray, filled with powders white as moonlight. Rice flour, orris root, crushed pearls. With a soft brush, the lady dusted her face, until her skin gleamed like porcelain. Then came the perfumes. Thick oils of musk, amber, and rose. Dabbed behind ears, wrists, and the folds of silk gowns. To the world, she appeared radiant. To herself, she smelled of safety. For the air reeked of sickness. And scent was believed to fight the unseen. To block miasmas. To close the body against death. Men too embraced this ritual armor. A gentleman never walked without a pomander. A hollow ball of gold or silver, filled with cloves, cinnamon, and myrrh. He held it close to his nose when crossing crowded streets, believing the perfume purified each breath. The poor did what they could. They burned rosemary on their hearths, rubbed vinegar on their hands, and stuffed pockets with mint. Even filth had its fragrance now. The scent of fear disguised as care. In courts and salons, the art of perfuming became a new religion. Rooms were smoked with burning herbs. Handkerchiefs were dipped in violet water. Wigs were powdered not only with starch, but with crushed blossoms and ground spices. Everything glittered. Everything smelled. But beneath the elegance lay denial. The body was no longer trusted. Touch was dangerous. Sweat was shame. And the natural scent of skin, once proof of life, was now something to erase. There were those who mourned this change. Old herbalists whispered of lost baths, of streams that healed more deeply than any perfume. A few poets still wrote of the honest scent of rain. Yet their words were drowned in clouds of musk and powder. The world had chosen its safety over its soul. And still, in some quiet corner, a child would wash her hands in a bowl of water, watching sunlight ripple across her fingers, and smile without fear. That small act was rebellion. The return of truth in the gentlest form. For no perfume, however divine, can match the scent of clean skin under the morning sun. And no powder, however perfect, can replace the peace of washing away yesterday. In the age of perfume and powder, humanity learned to imitate purity. But water, patient and eternal, waited just beyond the door, ready to forgive, ready to return. For centuries, water waited. It lingered in wells, slept beneath bridges, and whispered in forgotten fountains. It remembered everything. The laughter of Roman baths, the prayers of monks washing before dawn, the silence of rivers that once healed the weary. And when the fear of water began to fade, it was ready to return. It began quietly. A physician in Paris wrote of hygiene, a word ancient, yet reborn. He spoke not of sin or sickness, but of balance. He said, "To cleanse the body is to calm the soul." Others followed. Doctors prescribed baths for fever. Mothers washed their children in warm basins. Even kings began to build rooms for bathing once more. Not as punishment, but as pleasure. The marble halls of old Roman baths were gone, but the spirit of their water flowed again. In the 18th century, bathing became fashionable. Not just a cure, but a culture. Perfume was no longer enough. People wanted the feeling of clean. Public bathhouses reopened. And in private homes, copper tubs gleamed like treasure. Servants poured steaming water from kettles, scented with lavender, rose, or lemon. As the body returned to the water, so did trust. People began to believe that what was natural could also be kind. By the 19th century, water ran through pipes. Not from the sky, but from invention. Hygiene became modern. Cleanliness became a virtue. The age of fear gave way to the age of clarity. Hospitals washed. Cities drained. And the scent of soap replaced the suffocation of musk. The poor gained access to what kings once feared. A bar of soap became a revolution. And yet, something tender survived from the old days. The art of scent did not die. It evolved. Now, perfume no longer masked dirt. It celebrated it. Playing with the scent of rain, of grass, of human warmth. It remembered water. And learned to dance beside it. Today, when we turn a tap, and let water flow across our hands, we perform a silent ritual. Older than empires. Simpler than faith. Each droplet carries memory. Of fear, of beauty, of return. We do not think of miasmas, or powders, or pomanders. We think only of peace. For in that gentle sound, the water falling, cleansing, forgiving, we hear the final echo of all that history sought to hide. Droplet water returned. Not as an enemy, but as a friend who never truly left. And in that reunion, humanity washed away centuries of fear, and began, at last, to feel clean again.